Hello, hello, Pakara here, and it is real reflective hours. Something about November and December, maybe it's like everybody's doing their holiday shopping and stuff, and you have those moments in between, or, well, the holiday shopping happens in between these moments, if you're me, where you just kind of sit in the silence and you're just like, man, I kind of want to revamp like everything. just throw the whole life away and like start over. I mean that is essentially what New Year's resolutions are, isn't it? So it's not really that revolutionary. Anyway, I needed some kind of segue into this video because that's essentially what I'm doing. But before I start talking about like redoing everything, I want to first look at this year in retrospective a little bit because I would like to give myself a slight pat on the back. Last year around this time, I realized that, like, okay, you know what, it's totally valid for me to want to and aim to post leftovers consistently. So I sat down and I got working on a queue, and no, it wasn't nearly as easy as I just made it sound. I wish it was that easy. But I sat down and I got working on a queue and a buffer, sorry, and I managed to get what was it, chapters 13 through 16 done. So I managed to get 4 chapters done. And that buffer lasted me from January 1st, 2021 to August 31st, I think, or it was the last week of August, but I don't know if it was actually on the 31st or not, because I posted every Tuesday, so maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but yeah, it lasted me from January all the way to the end of August. And while my original goal for this year was to post just the entire year, I consider that a win. Considering leftovers hasn't been consistent, for like posting weekly since, God, 2016. It was since like the story started. So 2015, 2016-ish was the last time that leftovers had posted consistently every Tuesday or whenever it was back then. But this year it was Tuesdays. So considering like it's been that long since I posted that consistently, January to August, I will take that. That's a dub. So I just wanted to give myself like a pat on the back for that. And if you are listening to this and you haven't given yourself a pat on the back for anything, please do so. It is right the time to show yourself some gratitude, especially towards the end of this year where you're like wrapping everything up and you are, you know what, I made it through this year. I feel like everybody has to have those moments where you like pat yourself on the back and it's like, maybe it was hard, but I made it through. I don't know where that came from, but do it. Show yourself some gratitude. But yeah, so like I said, I posted chapters 13 through 16 of my comic Leftovers. I don't even think I have to say my comic, because if you come to the leftover logs, which I will explain the title in a minute, but if you come to the leftover logs, you know what leftovers is, hopefully. But if not, I have a Pokemon comic called Leftovers. Please go read it. Or don't if you don't want to, but it's fine. Yeah, so I posted chapters 13 through 16 between January and August of this year. And since then, I've been working, been toiling away on chapters 17, 18, and 19. Problem was, by the time I finished, like, my buffer, for chapter 16 in August, in case you didn't know, I finished chapter 16 in August. I'm sorry, I keep saying it. But yeah, so by the time I finished that, I needed to write chapters 17, 18, and 19. I had a general idea of what I wanted to happen then, and I'll go more into that later because it's all general ideas. That's the problem. But yeah, I had a general idea for what I wanted to happen, but I didn't actually have the script written. And I know like a lot of at least from talking to a lot of like people who have Nuzlocke or who run Nuzlocke, which Leftovers is not a Nuzlocke, but it's still like Pokemon comics, so it helps to talk to other people who have Pokemon comics, but I know a lot of them are like, oh yeah, you know, I work on my game stuff, or I don't understand how you can script things. I'm just like, huh. I don't know what camp I fall in really, because like half the time I'm going off the seat of my pants, and it's just like I just kind of vomit the script. I just kind of vomit the script after it's been stewing up in my brain for a bit, but I don't have everything planned out. So I'll usually have like 3 or so chapters, or 4. In the case of 13 through 16, I had those 4. And then now I have chapters 17, 18, and 19 all scripted out, and I've started working on thumbnails for those. So I tend to work, at least since, like, I think the most I've done was like 6 chapters at a time, and that was when Leftovers first started. But I tend to work in like 3 to 4 chapter increments, where overall, and it wasn't always like this. I'd say I got to this point maybe like last year or 2019. It might have been last year. I don't know, but I can't remember. But at some point in the past couple of years, I sat down and I was like, okay, I need to figure out where the story's going. And I sat down and I figured out where the story was going, generally speaking. And so now I'm kind of going through like loose plot points and being like, okay, chapters 17, 18, 19, I know what I want to happen. Now I have to figure out exactly what happens and like what the character moments are, like on the fly and everything. So that's been where I've been at. If any of you aren't in Discord and or have been wondering like where the pages go, because I know I mentioned that I was like taking a hiatus to work on chapters 18, 19, or 17, 18, and 19. But surprise, the hiatus is longer now, which is what this video is about. So as the title says, or as the thumbnail says, or whatever, I am taking a planned hiatus, not just for like a couple months or until I get these chapters done. I will be taking all of 2022 off from posting pages of Leftovers. So no Leftovers pages are going to get posted in 2022. I don't have any done anyway, but I wanted to like specify I won't be taking a break from Leftovers as a whole, but just posting pages. So no pages will go up. I might put some art up, if I get, hopefully I'll get some more art done, between now and then, but I'm gonna put some art up. But the reason why I'm taking the hiatus in next year for Leftovers, I've pondered I've pondered time and time again about whether or not I continue being a pantser, which, if you don't know the writing term, a pantser is somebody who flies by the seat of their pants. They tend to just like have things happen like as they go. So a lot of like Nuzlockers that I've talked to are like, okay, the game stuff happens, but like everything else I kind of just make up as I go, to fill in the gaps essentially. So it's kind of like a pantser, and like George R.R. Martin is a pantser, I believe, or he might be a planter, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But so there's a pantser, and there's a planner, and the planner is they've got all of their arcs worked out, and they've got their character stuff, worked out and everything. And then there's a planter, which is somewhere in between. I think like for the pantsers, I think one of like George R.R. Martin's quotes was like, you are the person in the garden, and whether you like curate the garden or let the garden just grow and see where it goes is the difference between a pantser and a planner. God, I can't get these two words to like cooperate. But that's the difference between a pantser and a planner. So hopefully that like explanation helps. But yeah, so I've been pondering for a really long time whether or not I continue to be a pantser or try to be a planner, or I think I've actually kind of settled somewhere in between. Like I'm kind of a pantser, but only for short periods of time. So the metaphor that I use when I was like trying to figure out, okay, do I want to take this hiatus? Because the hiatus is for me to sit down and finally plan out where I'm going in leftovers, like in detail, and not just like I have a general framework of what I want to go or where I want to go. And the metaphor I use for that is that right now I have, like, if you have a river, right? I have a bunch of like huge rocks that are like 5 miles apart across the river. I can't use those to cross the river because they're so far apart, right? But those are my milestones. Those are the big event that I have planned, that the little parts of the skeleton of where leftovers goes from now to where it ends. Those are those 5 mile apart rocks in the river. So what I need to do now, and what I've been doing is that, okay, I'll get to a rock. Like, for instance, spoiler if you haven't read Leftovers, Kiba and Kohen's fight. So it's like, okay, that's a rock, right? And then the next rock, I would say, milestone-wise, would be Kiba and, or not Kiba, Asadi and Kohen's talk at the end of chapter 16. So then, once I get to that one rock of them fighting, I'm like, okay, now as I'm going, I place little stones so I can cross over to the next milestone. And I do that as I go, which is why it takes so long for me to write chapters, because I have to like do all of the brain work from one milestone to another before I get to start actually like doing pages or thumbnails or whatever. So my plan for next year is to, and well, yeah, I have all my stones laid out, but I'll talk about that in a second. My plan for next year is to look at all of my 5 mile apart rocks across this river, and to fill in the gaps with stones and pebbles or whatever I need to build this bridge, this rock bridge. Are you still with me with this metaphor? But to fill in the gaps of whatever I need to cross the bridge. And once I'm at the end, I can come back and I can actually start taking my time and crossing the bridge. And taking my time and crossing the bridge means that I'll be able to freely draw and freely work on leftovers, like, the thumbnails and stuff, without having to worry about like, oh my god, where am I going after this? Because that's a big, not insecurity, but it's a big anxiety of mine, is that whenever I'm working on chapters, like in my little like 3 to 4 chapter radius, whenever I'm working on those chapters, oh, excuse me, God, the thing afterwards is like, okay, where am I going next? And it kind of slows down my process. Let me know in the comments if you have something like this that happens to you too, but it kind of slows down my process because I can't stop thinking about, oh my god, I don't have anywhere to go. Like, it's like running I'm just full of metaphors today. It's like running full speed ahead and knowing that you're going to hit a cliff, and like, where do you go from there, right? So like, why not just take your time walking? Because you don't know, obviously when you get to the cliff, you're not going to have anywhere to go anyway, so why not take your time walking? And that's why it takes me quite a while to work and build a buffer and build up pages. So my goal for next year is to fill in the gaps, plan as much and as many details of leftovers as possible, because like I said, I know where the story ends. I know everything that's happened, or like big things that are happening from now to where the story ends. But I want to plan out as much of that, like the arcs and stuff, so I don't have to like keep doubling back. Because those of you who don't know, a lot of leftovers internal consistency happens because I like reread my story and I'm like, okay, like what can I take from like this chapter and bring back up in the next chapter, or what do I need to address, like what wasn't addressed, stuff like that. And I'm really proud of my ability to do that. I know it's not like a huge thing, but it helps me out a lot, and it has saved my ass many times because I don't have a lot of the details planned out for leftovers. So yeah, my goal is to no, well, okay, so my ultimate goal, I think, overall, is to have a plan for like everything that's going to happen in leftovers, so that way I can say, all right, it's going to take me this many pages to get to this point, like definitively. You know what I mean? Like I can actually plan. Like how long chapters are going to be, because it's like, okay, I don't want to spend too long here, but without knowing where the story is going, I won't know how long spending too long here is. If that makes sense. So yeah, that's my plan for that. Now, I said I was going to explain leftovers logs, and here we go. So leftovers logs is essentially just what I'm doing now. I just want to like record and document, since I'm not going to be posting pages next year. I want to keep people in the loop and record and document my process doing this whole thing, because I've never taken like specifically this planned of a hiatus. I've done a planned hiatus before where I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a hiatus and I'm gonna like sit down. The first time I worked through the story, it was like, okay, I'm gonna take a hiatus, I'm gonna sit down and just like hash out some stuff. But next year I plan to have like, okay, this is the like phases that I need to work through. And I'm actually gonna be doing that this weekend. I'm gonna be planning out the phases that I need to work through for next year. But like I want to use the series to document that process and to document like all the stuff that I learned too about my story, because actually this is a perfect segue into the last segment of this video, which is I took like 3 weeks to brainstorm everything that I have in my mind about leftovers currently. Just everything I've thought about, I've had mental AMVs about, or all my milestones and all the stuff that I'm excited to get to. Everything, all of the world building stuff that I was thinking about, all of the plot twists, everything that I've ever thought about leftovers from where we're at now to where it ends went into this document. And it was so hard because I started out first like I was really anxious about like actually doing it, because that's like committing it to paper, even though it's not actually committing it to paper. But that pantser mentality, it made me feel like, oh my god, I'm committing this to paper if I write all of this out. And I actually have like red notes on the top of the document that's like, listen, nothing is solid, you're just throwing the shit out here. It's essentially like a big brain dump. It was cathartic. It took me 3 weeks, and at the end of it, I have 76 pages of bullet points. I have 76 pages of bullet points, and it's so funny because a lot of them are like, I don't know when or if this is gonna happen, but it sounds cool. So I'm like throwing, this variations, like there's a lot of like, this happens alternatively. So if anybody wants to do that, I definitely recommend just like, if you are a pantser and you want to at least see all the stuff that you have in your head like visually, so you can like run through it and everything, because it gets really hard and it gets really like tangled up when you just keep it inside. One of the main reasons why I wanted to even do this hiatus so I could like work everything out is because I'm like not deathly afraid, but there's a lot of anxiety around the idea that I could be working on leftovers for so long. And not to say that like I don't want to work on leftovers a long time, but like I want to at least be able to say, okay, by the time I'm 40, I will be done because I have the story planned out and this is where it ends. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be in this constant loop of, oh man, okay, I finished these 3 chapters. All right, now I have to write these 3 chapters. Okay, you know what I mean? So that was a main motivator behind taking this hiatus next year anyway. So if you have any, kind of anxiety like that, or if you just want to play a little game with yourself and put everything out there and see like all the crazy shit that you have in your head, then yeah, I definitely recommend it. I had to, and this is really important, and maybe it'll be different for you rules wise, but for me personally, I had to put the kibosh on coming up with plot points while I was putting out brainstorming, like while I was doing a bunch of brainstorming, because of the way that I usually write leftovers, where I decided as I go, I was actually getting caught up. Like, I couldn't get through the brainstorming quick enough, and like 2 of those 3 weeks were spent in this kind of loitering phase where I couldn't get through it quick enough because I was trying to come up with plot points and I was getting stuck in that same trap. So I had to be like, listen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if spoilers. It doesn't matter if season 1 is like 29 pages and season 3 is like 2 pages because you don't know what the hell is going on. Just put your stuff down. Just put it all down and you can fill in the gaps later. So that's like really important, because my, pantser mentality, I was like, oh my god, I gotta like fill in these gaps now, because that's just what I'm used to doing. But after I got, through all that, I had a really, really good time. Like, just it's something about putting like verbiage. It's something about putting verbiage or putting the thoughts in your head into writing, even if it's like not refined or anything. It's a lot of like it's a lot of just like me speaking in like rat brain because like I don't know details about stuff. It's a lot of like, yeah, I think this happens, but I mean maybe not in the actual like bullet points. But it's nice to have all of that there. And then, like I said, this weekend I'm going to be planning my game plan for next year. So I'm going to be reading, oh god, I'm going to be reading back through all 76 of these pages of bullet points. And I put a video up I'll put a video up on the screen now of like just me scrolling through, obviously blurred out so you don't actually see anything, but just me scrolling through so you can see how dense this shit is. But I'll be going back through this weekend, relative to when I'm recording this, which is the 10th of December. Yeah. So I'll be going back through Sunday and just writing out, like reading back through the notes and just writing out, oh god, I gotta like I gotta flush this out, or oh man, that character disappeared forever. And like, okay, there were so many times in my notes where I was like, there's so many times in my bullet points where I was just like, oh yeah, I guess Brendan and Danny can pop up here. My poor children, I just kind of forgot them at a certain point. Like, they were not a part of my vision. And it's just so funny because I thought, I thought like, oh man, okay, I've got everything planned out for leftovers from here to when it ends. But like writing all of that out will humble you real quick, because there was just times where I was like, that makes no sense, but I have to write it down and be okay with it for now. There's a lot of stuff where I'm like, how do they get there? Sorry. I'm just thinking about like, man, there's whole characters that were like supposed to be important, and I don't have 1 ounce of a thought about like how they factor into the story in my brain dump. It's crazy. Just whole plot lines not even considered. But yeah, so I just wanted to do this video. I don't know why I'm like, it's late. It's been 9:45. I don't know why I'm laughing so much. It just brings me joy, I guess. But yeah, so I just wanted to do this video, and I wanted to do these vlogs because hopefully similar to the streams where people like watch them while they're working on their comics, or they, if their comic is being read, then they use that as like a source of like inspiration, or oh god, what's the word? Encouragement. yeah. Or inspiration if they want. But hopefully people can listen to these vids or watch these vlogs and like I don't know, relate. I mentioned before, in another video I did called, I think, how my thumbnailing process or something like that. There was a YouTuber, or there is a YouTuber named Hiatus who inspired me a lot, to do that video and to just like even like want to post leftovers consistently. And they have a bunch of videos, and there's a lot of people. I think if I remember, I'll put a list of people that I listen to, like vloggers and stuff for webcomics. But from my experience, I don't see a lot of people out here vlogging their webcomic process. Like there's maybe like 5 or 6 of them that are doing it, that are just doing it for webcomics and not like a day in the life of kind of videos. So I would like to add to that, and hopefully people can find it helpful. Especially since I'm gonna be fighting myself as a pantser next year to not like sit down and just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna make some pages so I can put them up real quick. I mean, obviously I do want to actually do thumbnails next year, but that's a whole other video. That's the other thing too, with these vlogs, I actually wanted to keep them between 10 to 15 minutes. Clearly I failed this time, but I gotta like think about I don't need to put everything out there all at once. There will be plenty of time to put them out there. So yeah, okay, about these vlogs also, I was thinking of doing them like at least once a month, but I suppose they'll just happen when I have milestones. So I won't put a promise on that. But yeah, so this is officially the start of Leftovers vlogs, not the start of my actual planned hiatus. That doesn't start until January 1st. I still have to plan the planned hiatus, which I'm going to be doing this weekend, which I will probably make a video for. And I'm very excited about that because my first time doing it. So, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed. And if you come to my streams on Saturday, then I will see you then. Whenever this goes up, I don't know, but the next Saturday, I will see you then. Alright, Pakara, signing out.